Have you ever like seen a picture of a family and just been like, wow, they got it all figured out?
Yeah.
That's kind of what people thought when they saw the Watts family online, right? You had
Yeah.
Shanann,
Yeah.
this energetic woman who just loved sharing her life on social media.
Yeah.
And then you had Chris, her husband,
Mm-hmm.
this seemingly, quiet, hardworking oil worker.
Right.
And then they had these two adorable little girls, Bella and Celeste.
Right.
But in the summer of 2018, that picture of like happiness,
Yeah.
it kind of got shattered.
Yeah.
And it revealed this really dark and horrifying truth.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how this case, unfolded because it starts with this really unsettling disappearance.
Right.
One minute Shanann and the girls are there, and the next minute they're gone. Like it's like they vanished into thin air.
Yeah. And it all started in the early hours of August 13th.
Yeah.
So Shanann had just returned from a business trip,
Okay.
landed around 2 a.m., and her friend Nicole had dropped her off. Everything seemed totally normal. But then later that day, the alarm bells started going off because Shanann wasn't answering calls or texts,
Mm-hmm.
and she was missing appointments, which was totally out of character for her.
Oh, yeah, especially considering she was pregnant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was expecting their third child.
Right.
So, Nicole, being a good friend, was understandably worried. Contacted the police, and the police went over to the Watts house to do a welfare check.
Yeah.
And that's when they encountered Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you would expect a husband whose pregnant wife and 2 young daughters have seemingly disappeared
Right.
to be frantic.
Oh, absolutely.
But Chris was strangely calm,
Yeah.
almost like detached.
Yeah, he was.
And he claimed that Shanann might have taken the girls to a friend's house. But her purse found keys, everything was still at home.
Right.
It just didn't add up.
It makes you wonder if that online persona was maybe a carefully constructed facade,
Yeah,
a way to like mask what was truly happening behind closed doors.
exactly. And that's what's so crazy about this whole story is like the social media aspect adds this whole other layer.
Oh, for sure.
Because Shanann was very active online,
Yeah.
sharing updates about their life and her excitement about the new baby and her love for Chris.
Right.
And it all just seemed
Perfect.
so idyllic and so perfect.
Right.
Welcome to Crime Podcastle's Twisted Crime series.
So you've got the inconsistencies in Chris's story. You have his odd demeanor.
Right.
It all points towards something being terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And as investigators dug deeper, those cracks in his facade started to widen.
Yeah.
And it led them down a path that would unveil a shocking and heartbreaking truth.
So the investigation quickly gains momentum. The media picks up the story, and the nation is captivated by this mystery surrounding the missing Watts family.
Right.
And amidst all of this, Chris is thrust into the spotlight.
Yeah.
And he's playing the role of the concerned husband, pleading for their safe return. But behind the scenes, investigators are meticulously piecing together evidence. And those pieces start to point in a very disturbing direction.
Yeah.
You start to learn about their financial troubles and the growing distance between Chris and Shanann. And then there are whispers of another woman.
Right.
It was like watching this carefully constructed house of cards
Yeah.
begin to just collapse.
Yeah.
Revealing this really fragile and flawed foundation upon which it was built.
And one of the key turning points in this investigation was a polygraph test.
Okay.
Chris agreed to take it, presumably to try and clear his name, but he failed miserably.
A failed polygraph. That's a huge red flag.
Oh, yeah.
Put immense pressure on Chris.
Right.
And that's when his carefully constructed narratives started to crumble.
Yeah. Yeah, he just completely broke down. Faced with all this mounting evidence, his composure just cracked. And he confessed to killing Shanann, but he offered this really twisted justification.
Okay.
He claimed he did it in a fit of rage after he supposedly witnessed her harming their daughters.
So he was trying to position himself as the victim.
Exactly.
Driven to this horrific act by his wife's supposed actions.
Exactly. He was trying to manipulate the narrative, paint a picture of this desperate father who was protecting his children. But investigators weren't buying it.
Right, of course not.
Right.
What didn't add up about his initial confession?
So the forensic evidence didn't support his claims at all. There were no signs of a struggle that would indicate that Shanann had harmed the girls. And as the investigation continued, the really horrific truth started to emerge.
What was the real story?
So Chris confessed that he had been having an affair with a coworker, Nicole Kessinger,
Okay.
and he just longed for this fresh start, a new life free from what he perceived as the burdens of his family.
So rather than seeking like a separation or divorce,
Right.
he saw murder as the solution.
Yeah.
Way to completely erase his current life and just start over.
Tragically, yes. He had become so entangled in this desire for a new life that he viewed his family as obstacles standing in the way of his happiness.
Wow.
And he meticulously planned their murders to eliminate those obstacles.
This is where it becomes incredibly difficult to even like comprehend the level of detachment and the cruelty.
Right.
How could someone, a father, see his own children as obstacles, as burdens to be disposed of?
It's a question that haunts everyone that looks into this case.
Yeah.
The details of the murders themselves are incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
So Chris strangled Shanann in their bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
Following an argument about the affair.
It's just hard to even imagine the terror that she must have felt in those final moments, realizing that the person that she loved, the father of her children, was capable of such violence.
And then comes the most heart-wrenching aspect of this entire case. He took Bella and Celeste, both still alive, in his truck to this secluded oilwork site.
Oh my God.
And he smothered each of them one by one in the backseat of his truck.
It's just unimaginable. The thought of those two little girls, their lives brutally cut short by their own father. It's just awful.
After committing these horrific acts, Chris then disposed of their bodies in a very calculated and callous manner.
Okay.
He buried Shanann in a shallow grave, and then he concealed his daughter's bodies in separate oil tanks.
It's almost beyond comprehension. The level of premeditation and cold-heartedness to not only commit these acts, but to then try and like hide the evidence to erase their existence.
Yeah.
It just speaks to a deeply disturbing psychological state.
The discovery of the bodies just sent shockwaves throughout the community and the nation. The image of those little girls hidden away in those tanks just became this haunting symbol of the case.
And the betrayal, the sheer violation of trust at the heart of the story is truly staggering. The fact that he tried to cover it up, to lie and manipulate his way out of it, it just adds to the horror.
Yeah, his actions just revealed this complete lack of remorse, this chilling detachment from the consequences of his crimes.
So Chris was arrested on August 15th, just a couple of days after reporting his family missing.
Right.
What were the charges against him?
He faced multiple charges, including first-degree murder and unlawful termination of a pregnancy.
Okay.
Given the heinous nature of his crimes, many expected him to, fight for his innocence.
Right.
To try and escape the harshest possible punishment.
Of course.
But that's not what happened.
Right.
In a move that surprised many, Chris decided to plead guilty to all charges in November 2018.
Wow.
It was a strategic decision driven by a desire to avoid the death penalty.
So he was willing to accept responsibility for his actions, but only to a certain extent. He wanted to save his own life, even after taking the lives of his entire family.
Exactly. He received 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The judge presiding over the case called his crimes the most inhumane and vicious he had ever encountered in his career.
It's just hard to fathom the pain and anguish that Shanann's family must have endured losing their daughter or their granddaughters in such a brutal and senseless way.
It's truly unimaginable. But in the face of this devastating loss, they've displayed remarkable strength and resilience. They've become very vocal advocates for domestic violence awareness, working tirelessly to ensure that Shanann, Bella, and Celeste's story serves as a catalyst for change.
Their efforts to find meaning, to create something positive out of such unimaginable darkness, is truly inspiring.
It speaks to the enduring power of love and the importance of honoring the memory of those we've lost. They're determined to prevent other families from experiencing the same kind of tragedy.
This case really sparked a national conversation, didn't it? It forced people to confront the dark reality that domestic violence can lurk behind closed doors, even in seemingly perfect families.
Absolutely. It shattered the illusion that we can easily identify dangerous individuals, highlighting the fact that evil can sometimes hide in plain sight behind a charming smile and an ordinary facade.
It reminds us that things aren't always as they appear, especially on social media, where people often present these carefully curated versions of themselves and their lives.
You're absolutely right. And it underscores the importance of paying attention to red flags, even subtle ones, and not dismissing them as simply personality quirks or relationship challenges. There's a need for greater awareness, a deeper understanding of the warning signs of domestic violence, and a willingness to intervene when we suspect someone may be in danger.
What happened to Chris Watts after his sentencing?
He is currently serving his 5 life sentences in a maximum security prison in Wisconsin.
Okay.
He was transferred there due to security concerns.
Right.
As you can imagine, the notoriety of his crimes made him a target within the Colorado prison system.
Yeah, of course. And what became of his mistress, Nicole Kessinger?
She cooperated with investigators, maintaining that she had no prior knowledge of Chris's plans to harm his family. Understandably, she's kept an extremely low profile since the murders.
Right.
It's difficult to even imagine the weight of guilt and trauma she must carry.
It's a reminder that even those on the periphery of such horrific events can be profoundly impacted, forever linked to the tragedy.
Absolutely. The ripple effects of a crime like this extend far beyond the immediate victims, touching the lives of friends, family members, and the community as a whole.
This has been an incredibly difficult case to delve into, but it's also an important one. It forces us to confront the darkness that exists in the world and to ask ourselves what we can do to create a safer, more compassionate society.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a stark reminder that we all have a role to play in promoting awareness, fostering healthy relationships, and offering support to those who may be suffering in silence.
It's about creating a culture where victims feel empowered to speak out, where bystanders are equipped to recognize and intervene, and where we prioritize prevention and early intervention.
Exactly. It's about breaking the cycle of silence and shame that often surrounds domestic violence and building a society where everyone feels safe and supported.
Yeah, it's a case that leaves you with so many questions, like so many what ifs. Like, what if someone had noticed the signs? What if Shanann had felt safe enough to confide in someone about what was happening?
Those are the questions that linger, the ones that fuel our desire to understand not only the events themselves, but like the underlying causes, the societal and psychological factors that contribute to these tragedies.
It's easy to get consumed by the darkness of this case, to lose sight of the fact that there is hope. There are people out there fighting to make a difference.
You're absolutely right. Shanann's family, despite their unimaginable loss, have channeled their grief into a powerful force for good. They've established the Shanann Watts Foundation, dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence, supporting victims, and advocating for change.
It's incredible how they've turned their pain into a platform to help others, to try and prevent other families from enduring the same heartbreak.
Their work is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of love, and the unwavering determination to find meaning in the face of tragedy.
The Chris Watts case is just this stark reminder that domestic violence can happen anywhere, to anyone, regardless of social status, outward appearances, or carefully curated online personas.
It's a societal issue that demands our attention, our compassion, and our commitment to creating a world where everyone feels safe and supported.
It's about recognizing the warning signs, fostering healthy relationships, and promoting open communication. It's about empowering victims to speak out and equipping bystanders to intervene.
And it's about holding perpetrators accountable for their actions while also working to address the underlying factors that contribute to domestic violence, such as power imbalances, societal norms, and individual psychological issues.
This deep dive has been a journey into the darkest corners of the human experience, a chilling exploration of betrayal, deceit, and unimaginable cruelty. But it's also been a call to action, a reminder that we have a collective responsibility to prevent such tragedies from occurring.
We must remain vigilant, compassionate, and committed to fostering a culture of respect, empathy, and support. The Chris Watts case serves as a haunting reminder of what can happen when those values are absent.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. There are resources available, and you don't have to suffer in silence. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 800-799-7233.
And for more gripping true crime explorations, be sure to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel. We'll see you on our next deep dive.